Welcome to the Wild Remedies podcast. I'm your host, Christopher and Kaur, and I'm here to bring you captivating stories from some of the most fascinating people I've connected with on my own journey of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Wild Remedies podcast. On this episode, we are covering a lot of topics here, from navigating a spiritual awakening to social activism, human design, and we're also going to touch some touchy subjects like COVID policy, specifically here in Canada, where both I and today's guest, Raminder Hayre, reside. I discovered Raminder on Instagram during the height of the pandemic, and I really resonated with her advocacy work around humanizing those who chose to remain COVID vaccine free, even though she herself chose to be vaccinated. I found her perspective to be incredibly valuable because of her experience as a lawyer with the BC Supreme Court, the Human Rights Tribunal, and Civil Resolution Tribunal. And also because she's an intuitive, which brought a whole other level of perspective to her advocacy work. My personal perspective is and always has been that people deserve the right to choose what they put in their body. And, I'm sure you can tell by the name of this podcast and some of the topics that I choose to navigate health issues through natural and spiritual means. And I've worked really hard over my life to break free from the Western medical system because in most cases, the system was making me more ill, not more healthy. And, I'd like to note that I will be bringing on more guests to discuss some of these quote unquote touchy subjects because it's important to view all sides of a topic and not just rely on information based solely on, those with profitable agendas. So, wherever you are on the subject of COVID, I hope you can keep an open mind and enjoy some of the wisdom that Raminder brings to our community here. Her story of breaking free from another kind of system, the legal system, as a former lawyer, and then following her true calling as a psychic healer and an activist is really inspiring. Raminder's goal is to help every person that she can break out of the matrix of the 9-to-5 mentality of burnout by focusing on their purpose and passion, keeping in mind that this may include redefining or adjusting your current job. So with that, let's meet Raminder. Welcome, Raminder, to the Wild Remedies podcast. I am so psyched to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm actually having a little bit of a fangirl moment because I've been following you for quite a while now. I absolutely love your Instagram. It has been incredibly inspiring for me especially over the past couple of years. Just your style of activism, I think, is just incredibly refreshing. And I've been following your story a little bit, and you have such an interesting journey with the shift recently in your career.
Yeah.
And I just had to have you on. And I mean, also you're into all the spiritual stuff, which we're all about at Wild Remedies. And so I'm really excited to dig into that and maybe learn a little bit about human design and all of those things.
For sure.
Yeah, but why don't we just get started about your journey and, tell us a little bit about like where you were and some of the shifts and stuff that you've experienced recently and how you landed into, more energetic and healing and psychic work.
Yeah. So I've been a spiritual healer or had those inclinations in every lifetime that I've had. This lifetime, I guess, was more consciously unpacking that and having those downloads to figure out, what is the right path for me and whatnot. So I grew up very academic by choice, not by force. Like my career was because I wanted to do it, not because my parents wanted me to, which is super common, especially in like South Asian households or Asian households. So I always had planned to do further education. And so after I graduated high school, I did my BA. Then I went on and did my MBA, my master's in business. And then I went on and did my JD, which was my law degree. And purpose being to be a lawyer, which I did do. And I got called to the bar. And it would have been like, 4 or 5 years this year that I was really planted in that field. And in May of this year, 2022, I switched to non-practicing. When I got called to the bar, it was a super emotional moment for me. I didn't know prior to that I was going through any sort of awakening or that my soul was calling me to do something else. It's not a career that I regret going for, or like the schooling is not something I regret, because it, as you know, my activism style, like you said, a large part of that is bringing together all my backgrounds to actually have a message that's rounded out to give that educational perspective. I wouldn't be able to do that, or I wouldn't have the credibility if I hadn't actually gone to law school and got called to the bar, right? I think that's a huge part of the influence or whatnot that I guess I could have or do have, etc. I just enjoy doing what I do. And so when I got called, I was still on my path of like, okay, gonna find the big firm, gonna do this. And that's what I did. Like, I went to the big firm environment. I think I excelled in there pretty well, but I became conscious of my awakening while I was in that environment. And so I was preparing for a trial that I was doing with one of the partners as well as a senior associate. And so I'm a twin flame. So I had a catalyst in that sort of awakening. And so if people are unfamiliar with that, it's like you kind of like find your soul counterpart for your healing and your ascension in the 3D. And when I had met my counterpart, I had no idea what was going on because it was a feeling I'd never felt before. And so I was really just kind of confused and trying to assess like what this connection is. And so while I was preparing for trial, soon before that, or right before that, I found out what that was. Like, my guides guided me to a video on my YouTube homepage, and I'm like, shit, I didn't know like there's a percent of people on this planet that are like this, or that feel this way, or have the same purpose. Purpose being to find yourself and to have that sovereignty, not to be in a relationship necessarily, right? So it was crazy because I was trying to prepare for trial and figure out what was going on in my life. And I just felt I was split in between. And so eventually I left that job. That was pre-pandemic, not knowing that pandemic was happening. I was like, oh, I'll find a job, no problem, with my experience and where I've been and who I know. And sure, that could have worked if the world didn't shut down 2 weeks after I quit my job, right? And so it all happened so quick, right? So you can imagine where you were the end of February versus the end of March, and life just completely spiraled. And so that's when my guides really had me sit down, because it took me a couple of months to get a new job and to align with that. And so that was their actual sign to tell me, hey, you're meant to do this sort of work full time, but I wasn't ready to leave what I was doing. And so after that, I had a couple more big firm jobs. And then I realized this isn't working for me. I actually got fired from my last one because I was not listening to my guides. I was advocating and one of the biggest activists in the world for the Indian farmers protest. And so that was like a full-time job for me. I was doing a lot of media and podcasts and panels for that. And so my activation in my human design, one of my main ones is spiritual activism. And I just wasn't conscious of that being my purpose. That, like, you know, for me, it was like a hobby, like, oh yeah, I can do both things. And so, yeah, I was just finding a lot more fulfillment in that and realizing my privilege in a whole new way, that I didn't actually have the tools or the opening to use my education and my cultural background to create this level of awareness. And so it was really niche. And then I was like, well, this is what I'm meant to do. And I mean, ironic, it was while I was on a hiatus, I was going through an ascension. I was offline completely. I didn't really realize that this is what was going to happen or what I was gaining energy for. And actually, same thing happened right before the mandates. So my guides always like get me to go offline right before, because then they know I'm going to be completely overwhelmed with the work that I'm doing. And so, longer story short, I had to make a tough decision, you know, of what I thought was give up my legal career to pursue this full time and to pursue my life purpose business and human design and coaching and healing, helping other professionals, ranges and so many different types of professionals I've worked with and age groups. And yeah, you know, I started my own firm for a bit. I was working on a contract with a friend. And then I was like, I have so much resistance to actually practicing. And I had to admit that to myself. Like, I have so much resistance in the system that we're in. Like, I need to change the system from the outside. I need to be a lawyer on the outside, teaching people what they need as knowledge to get in there. And I'm not saying that lawyers are bad or judges are bad. It's like, the system we have, government, policy, law, medicine, is based on colonization. It has never once been dismantled. It's just been what they think is an evolution, but not. It was built on what I explained one time. I'm like, you're on bad bones. You're on bad structure and foundation. If you keep building a new house or you keep trying to renovate something, at the end of the day, it will still crumble because you haven't started fresh. You need rip everything out and start over. And that's what we're in the middle of. And for me, I guess I find some peace in knowing that I'm trying to lead that the best that I can in a way that's not really widely understood.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there, but what an incredible story.
Thanks.
How did you feel during this, kind of spiritual awakening? Because I can imagine that would have been really tough. Like, you have spent so much time, energy, money focusing on, building a certain career that you thought you wanted, and then just had to change direction, right? Like, what did that feel like? Because I have a suspicion that a lot of people go through this type of thing. They may not have the awareness because, you're talking about how you get to talk to your guides and all of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not, always accessible for all of us in those types of ways. So how did that play out for you?
Yeah, it was really emotional. It's a whole grieving process, right? Just like you grieve a relationship or you mourn a death, it was grieving what I thought was my identity. And a huge thing what I realized when I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, if you saw, I was in the hot tub and like somebody asked me what I do, right? And like, I'm like, yeah, I'm a lawyer. Like, oh, what kind of law? And then I reframe what I do, right? Like at the beginning, not even the beginning, honestly, even a month ago, for me, it was like, can I even call myself that? And I'm like, well, who told you you cannot? Only you can take that title away from you. Like you worked really hard. And when I look outwardly, like I always tell my clients, zoom out or look from bird's eye view. I'm like, I've known I'm meant to do more, or I'm here to do more. And this path, this shift is showing me that I'm supposed to be one of a kind, right? We all are on this planet meant to be one of a kind. I wasn't meant to go that normal lawyer route of making partner, maybe managing partner and judge, like everything I thought I wanted to do that would make me successful or proud of myself. Guides are like, no, like you need to be more recognizable. And so they're just like, you need to look at what we've been telling you for a long time. And I've always been like at least 5 years ahead of everybody around me. It's just that it manifests later. And I never knew growing up that that's because I was intuitive, right? I didn't know during school that I was feeling a certain, like during post-secondary, I excelled through high school, always honor roll, always top of the class. When I went through my BA, my master's, I did really well in, I feel because it was more subjective. Like there are no real rules. Sociology, that's what my BA is in. It also helps me with my activism because it's a study of people. I did a lot of gender studies and identity study and just understanding demographic overall. But a lot of those teachers at that time wanted you to have a restricted view of philosophy or sociology or theory, right? Theory is meant to be theoretical. It's meant to be fluid. And so I found myself doing rather poor in university, like in that way, as well as in law. Like I always had these nudges or different perspectives or empathy to like bring into scenarios that I felt was never understood. Of course, we're in a system. And so once I started realizing that this is like, my purpose is to teach this and to create new theory, I was like, ooh, cool. Maybe you'll be in a book one day, right? Like I had to start to think about all these sort of things. Like you're here to develop things because, well, in human design, we have 9 centers. One of our centers, which is unique to human design, is like basically your chakra system, but you have 2 other centers. Unique to human design is a G center, which is here. And it's like where our identity is. It's kind of like where our solar plexus are, at least on the chakra system, not in human design, but I won't get so technical. That is like where we harbor our identity or our belief in that. And so I have an undefined identity, which means that I may spend a lot of time sabotaging myself trying to find one, trying to label myself, right? Not having a strong sense of who I am without these certain titles to dictate that. And so, all my awakening has been decoding my programming, all of which I basically know now, which is a blessing, but also frustrating. because you know exactly what's going on, right? I'm sure you understand. And so the grieving process, I don't want to say the explanatory process, because my friends are very supportive and they say, we know when you make a decision, it's always to do something better. Like, we have no doubt in your decision making. And so for me, I've always been really supported in what I do, and having that behind me, and honestly being blessed to have my parents' support and my family's support, and that has been a huge privilege, I think, because a lot of people don't grow up in those sort of families where their parents will be like, yeah, we trust you're making the best decision. And I think when my dad told me that in April, like, you know what you're doing, that almost made me cry, because like, at the end of the day, you want to make sure your parents are proud of you, right? Every child wants that. I wanted to know that they understood my purpose was bigger than what I do. And I think just ripping off that Band-Aid to be like, I'm doing this and I'm switching to non-practicing because F this, like, I can't keep fighting against a system that was meant to break you, that has resources, that cares about semantics. Like, the equity in law is something that is still developing. And though they try to say that there is equity, which is inclusivity, which is understanding, of the marginalization, which is giving equal access to people without resources, at the end of the day, it's not true. It just doesn't happen. I think we're seeing that a lot more because people can't fund their cases in the way that the government can unless they have a lot of donations. I mean, look at what happened with the Freedom Convoy. Look how much money they raised and how the government came down on them because they actually had a fair shot of running a defense or running a claim.
Yeah.
Right. And so the moment that they are put on the spot, they use everything that they have to tear us down. And I felt like I got fired before the mandates went into effect. And so my time frame in actually staying at the firm would have been only 3 to 4 months, because if the mandate came into effect, even though I have the V, I would have quit because it's completely against who I am. I wouldn't have been able to stand there with integrity at a firm. And the thing is, what's kind of funny is I only worked on the defense side for insurance companies.
Interesting.
And so that would have been a complete, I would not be able to be in any sort of alignment. Like, even just thinking about breaching somebody's coverage in their policy because they're V free, I just can't even fathom putting myself in that position.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kudos to you, for being that person. Like, it's fucking hard. I get it. We've seen such a deterioration of our society and so much conformity over the last couple of years. And the reason that I really started following your work was because of your activism around what has been happening within the Canadian government around the COVID narrative in the past couple of years. It was just absolutely horrifying to witness. And you brought such an amazing perspective to it because it was, you humanized everyone, right? And your perspective coming from a legal background was extremely critical. And so I think your voice was just so helpful to so many people who felt utterly alone through this process. I think, we are going through an awakening and people are starting to see what all of this is really about. But yeah, it was really tough. So what you did was really fucking brave.
Thank you. I think I've always had that in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think because this was nothing new to me, it was just okay, it's another thing to speak about. And I feel that the Indian farmers protest really gave me, I don't want to say the gumption, but it paved my energy a lot, because that situation right before, and it was already going on, right? It was before most of the mandate stuff. The farmers' protest started in November of 2020 or August of 2020 and just ended last year, right? And for anybody listening, my predictions for the protest ending, they were correct. And so I like to maintain that high vibe around the predictions that I make for any V mandates and stuff. And so I try to keep that light going. Yeah, I was on it by a day, and now I'm okay, there's another one I made for September the 15th for Arrive Can, and I'm hoping that it just ends up oh my God, that's only 8 days away. Pressure. I'm still feeling good about that. I was washing the dishes today. I was like, do I still feel good about that? Yep. Okay. Keep going. Don't doubt yourself. Because like my mentality has been like, they wanted people to suffer through the summer, right? Like, and now that school's back in session, there are not as many people traveling. And so in their mind, their logic is, well, there's less chance of transmission. It's the stupidest fucking argument, right? But like, we just know what it is on the ignorance. But like the farmers' protest, like I was saying, really paved my gut, like really paved my sacral. I feel to be really strong. It's not that I wasn't triggered during that. It's like, it was a combination of stuff. It was posting 6 to 7 times a day. Like people think I posted a lot or I'm posting a lot now. Like I was like on it 6 to 7 times a day while at the firm creating like infographics off my work computer, which I should not have been doing. And then like dealing with the intergenerational trauma of Punjabis being marginalized and sleeping on the street, even though it wasn't directly me. I'm only one generation away from that being me or my parents. So naturally you feel that energy, especially because people in Punjab are majority farmers, over 70%. And then, well, I'm Punjabi for those that are unaware. So, you know, that played a big role. And then receiving all the hate, the nationalists and the actual real supremacists that are in India that are causing this, right? Messaging me, telling me that my people deserve to die, right? A lot of that sort of stuff. Like I had to really just swallow it, right? At that point, knowing that what I was doing was right. And I think that having already gone through that very extreme, I was able to come back, you know, stronger to be like, this is wrong. I'm going to break it down. I think one of the hardest parts was the people that were not able to have empathy for those that chose to be free. Yeah. Whether it's a choice or not, I should say, actually, because some people are choosing their life versus not, or what they think is the best decision based on their background, right? So for some, it's not even really a choice of yes or no. It's weighing the option. And so it was hard because people couldn't see what I was creating empathy around, which was drugs, which was addiction, which was understanding the vulnerability of mothers and children. I was talking about this from last summer and creating infographics around it for over a year now. And at that point, I got a lot of hate of like, well, there's no research about this. There's no research about that. But that's the whole crux of the argument is there's no research. So how is it safe? How can we just assume safety? That's something that's earned through the experiment, right? And so I got a lot of negativity around those things. But you know what? I got to say, I have 75% more support and positivity on my platform, which I have to constantly remind myself of when I get these ignorant comments or hate comments. It's like, well, look at all the people that really know what you stand for or who you are, right? And I think that when you're in this, let's say, line of work or living a purpose such as this, it's a constant thing for me to remind myself of that. And I'm like, hey, like in the event you make it super big one day and you have millions of people, like you're not going to give a shit, most likely, because you're not even going to see it. Right. And so I just have to I have to give myself those healthy thoughts because I'm like, all right, it doesn't matter what they say. Like they're sitting behind their private account and they would never go and publicly make a post about their opinion. And that's not right or wrong. It's just, I know what I'm signing up for, but because I think I have a tender heart and gut for sure, I have to remind myself that those words they're meaningless to I guess for what I'm here to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'm kind of curious. Have you always been intuitive? Like, was this something that started as you were a child or did it develop a little bit later in life? And did that also, was that a big part in, helping you kind of see what was going on during this time? I want to take a quick second to let you guys know about the other side of Wild Remedies, our incredible wellness potions. We recently launched a collection of functional magic lattes crafted with love and intention to help you look and feel your best. We currently have 3 delicious products to nourish you from the inside out. Strawberry Rose is our beauty potion, crafted with ceramicides and vitamin C to help hydrate and plump your skin from within. Spiced Chocolate is our immunity blend, featuring wild Siberian chaga mushroom with a sophisticated spicy twist to support your immune system. And finally, Almond Lavender Dream, a literal chill pill in a cup. with potent relaxation herbs and delicate notes of amaretto and vanilla to help you unwind. At Wild Remedies, our goal is to bring you the best of nature for the betterment of humanity.
So I never knew I was intuitive. Now that I look back, I can see I always was, or that I was always an empath, right? Like this was something I, of course, unpacked. Funny story I tell people is a moment I think I knew, like subconsciously at least, was when I was reading Harry Potter, The Goblet of Fire, I believe. You know, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I remember where I was sitting on the couch and I was reading about Harry understanding parcel tongue. So like he can hear snakes, or he can understand what snakes are saying.
Right.
Language. And I was like, sometimes I hear voices in my head. And like, I remember going to my mom and being like, oh, I can hear voices in my head. Like, do I need help kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And they brushed it off. I mean, that's a typical thing though, right? Like I was 12 years old or something like that. So I think that was the real first sign of there's more here, right? I played it off as anxiety for a long time, but I mean, I cured a lot of my anxiety through my spirituality, which is definitely possible. But like it was something now that I look in hindsight was definitely there. I've made lots of predictions, like even in the last decade, that have kind of, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately come true, where I've then received messages later like, oh yeah, should have listened to you. And I'm like, man, like, you know, I'm not here to say I told you so. Like people have to go through their lessons and all of that. But I have a strong nose. I always say I can sniff it out. And now I know what it is. And so I always had that. I was always really sensitive. I was actually very empathetic towards myself, which I think is a good thing growing up. Like, and so I was the black sheep naturally. And I think a lot of spiritual people are, because they paved their own path. So like I said, for me, having my voice wasn't hard. It was something that I'd been practicing my whole life, even if it got me in shit. But I definitely had the inklings, but I really was not aware of what they were until like 2017.
Okay. Got it. Another thing that I made a note of that I'm curious about. So you mentioned this twin flame when you were kind of going through your awakening. What does that mean exactly? Because I think a lot of people get that confused, and I'm not even sure what that means. What does that mean to you?
A lot of people get it confused. A lot of people think they're a twin flame, but are not. They're in a soulmate relationship. And so a lot of people idolize and idealize the twin flame dynamic. And I'm being frank in saying it's the most painful thing you'll ever experience. So if you haven't been through that sort of pain with a soul counterpart, you are not a twin flame, point blank, period. It involves a lot of coming together and going apart, magnetization, because you're meant to heal the polarity inside of you energetically. So that's why, it was very depressing for me. It was very confusing because people try to play it off as something karmic, but it's not, because they're not harming you. It's what it's triggering inside of you. And so Hollywood has also glamorized that word, Paris Hilton, Megan Fox, for example. And so I'm not a fan of people that are soulmates using that term because they haven't lived the experience. And I can just outwardly tell based on the relationship that it's just not that. And so there's only like a little over 100,000 people on the planet that are in this sort of dynamic. Most often it will result in romantic attraction because you're meant to heal a lot of that through one another. And so you end up healing a lot of your mother and father wounds. And for those of you that are familiar, your wounding with your mother and father, depending on your gender status, whatever, copy and paste into your relationship dynamic. And so you're meant to really heal that super, super deep. And so it is a romantic attraction. But the thing is that it's an energetic connection. You can't physically manipulate this relationship in any sort of way. And once you get to understanding that to a certain degree, you're either going to end up with this counterpart because they've chosen to do the work as well. Free will plays a huge role in this. But the best advice I got ever through my twin flame awakening and catalyst was, you're doing the work to help yourself to get into inner union. You're not doing this work to depend on that as an outcome. That will keep you in a negative, toxic cycle, maybe for the rest of your life. Right? And so people like my friends could see, like before I met him to now where I am, and the growth and the change and like what I've actually healed. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very specific journey, and you're going to know if you're one. It's not a soulmate connection. It's absolutely like, it's the opposite of that, really, especially because of the amount of pain that you go through to heal yourself. And, some people choose after they've done a certain level of healing to go a different direction. And that's also okay, because you understand what it is to be in balance with yourself. And so it was a necessary thing for me to go through that catalyst and awakening, to meditate on all of our past lives and go through my Akashic and clear all that stuff, seeing how those situations manifested again and again, until I was able to choose different patterns for myself as well, choose different behavior. That's the main thing. It's meant to bring you somewhere, right? It's like, we have to know what it's going to bring us. And once it started getting better, I was like, ooh, okay, I can like finally breathe again. Because at the beginning, you're so uncertain, like your whole world is shaken up because you've just like been hit in the face with something. And you're like, ugh. But it's like, it's a mirror.
Yeah.
Right. It really is. And that's what it's meant to teach you. So I'm grateful for it, for sure. I'm always like 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Like, stay in ego. Stay in ego. I do not recommend you trying to manifest your counterpart. But the thing is, you can't try to even do that, because you have to be in that specific lifetime to have chosen something else, right? To have chosen higher alignment. And for me, this is my last lifetime, because I've gone through all those lessons and the clearing and the shifting that is required. And some of us need to just go through a couple of lives to get to that point. Many lives, really.
Yeah.
10,
Wild.
like 10. Yeah. A lot of trauma. Let's just say a lot of trauma and a lot of crying. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, I feel you on that one. I don't know. I had maybe it was a twin flame. I don't know, but a very difficult relationship in the past that took, about a year and a half of very, very deep work. And, at the time it's really shitty. It feels really awful, but you come out of it being like, okay, I see where I played my part. I understand the patterns that were playing out. I don't want this to happen again. So I need to learn some lessons.
Yeah. Taking accountability for our healing is huge.
Yeah.
We have to see the role we play in our own martyrdom, right? In our own lifestyle and scenario. Like, we can't blame people outside of us and give them that power to change.
Absolutely.
And to change for us, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things to learn during any awakening or any ascension or any healing path that you choose. Is like, no, I'm choosing to do this for me. And that's how we really get out of distortion, is when we realize, like, no, I have that power within me. And probably sounds cliche to a lot of people, but it's choosing that, right? Even we're going to have hiccups, we're going to detour, but continuously going back to knowing that we have the choice to make, even if it's difficult. I think that's like a profound piece of our healing journeys.
Absolutely. I'm curious, you mentioned that you healed your anxiety through spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
What did that look like?
I think because I realized, how to remain calm and surrender, how to create boundaries. That was huge. Creating boundaries in family dynamics, mainly. Not trying to fix things all the time. That's a huge thing, right? We want to fix everything in our surroundings, even though people choose not to do that for themselves, especially when it's in our most intimate relationships. I was on anti-anxiety, antidepressant meds a little bit during undergrad. I chose to stop because I knew I was going to get addicted. I think probably one of the best decisions I made for myself. And so it did cause me some hardship, right? My anxiety and depression, well, a lot. I was also in an unaligned relationship with my ex-husband. That also plays a role into, your mental health and well-being. And I love him. He's a friend. I always like to say that, because I'm not talking about him. I'm just saying we're unaligned. Obviously, we're not together because we were not happy. That's just common sense. He's now happily married again. And so it's it's about how all those choices out of alignment perpetuate your mental anxiety, right? And so when I started to see that creating space and boundaries and listening to my inner compass, was bringing me more happiness, saying no to things I really didn't want to do. Again, living in the present, living in the now. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about that, being in the now. And that, when I stopped trying to like fixate on what may happen or what happened and how could I have changed it, right? I don't know if you heard that quote, when you think too much about the future, you're anxious. When you think too much about the past, you're depressed, right? It's so hard to just stay in the present because you're always just, your energy is going either way. And so once I started practicing that presence is when I really started to feel a shift, because I started to eventually opening up my gifts, start to see the purpose in things, know the timing of things, know how to connect with my guides through a lot of this deprogramming. And it's not that I don't get anxiety. I know a lot of the time it's my inner child making up scenarios now, or I'm in sabotage mode. And so one of the biggest things I say when it comes to anxiety or fear overall, because fear is essentially anxiety, or vice versa, I should say, to my clients, it's like, okay, are you making up a scenario, right? Because you're scared, you're trying to get to a certain outcome or trying to assess an outcome, or is this something that you have faced before? So there's a fear, there's a natural fear of facing it again because you've actually been there. So it's like, okay, that's different than just assuming that something may happen and then we manifest that, because then we live according to the assumption it'll happen and then we create it and then wonder why that happened. Right? When we see that we play a big role in that and that we can choose better thoughts and better feelings. I mean, it took a long time. It took years to actually get to the space of feeling better. And now when I have that anxiety, it's like, okay, tune in. And I think that so many of us keep in what we're feeling, right? We don't have the honest, conscious, vulnerable conversation. And how much of our anxiety could really be cured in being open and honest in our partnership, in our families, and having that transparency. And I think once I started to feel better about doing that, and also getting myself out of situations where I was always feeling anxious around people that always made me that way, people that I just didn't want to be around, I realized I didn't really have any boundaries to create anymore, because I wasn't like putting myself in those scenarios like, yeah, I should go to that event, or I should reach out, or I should do this because I feel bad if I don't, or all this stuff. Like that all compounds into a disaster for our mental health because we start living external. And so really taking that time and space to assess who I wanted in my life, what I wanted in my life, and honestly allowing spirit to take away what wasn't aligned for me anymore. Allowing them to show me the relationships, the people, the places that were just not fulfilling, and reassessing my value in staying there. And it doesn't mean that anything or anybody is bad. It's just like, this isn't meant for you. It's probably meant for someone else or for another person. Like, the fear of change, I think, is what keeps the anxiety going.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of like everything that you just spoke about there is just really learning to listen to your intuition. Like I myself was challenged with boundaries in relationship for a really long time. And I had that voice inside of me being like, you need to speak up, or you need to leave, or you need to do all of these things. But because my ego was kind of like overtaking and running the show and being like, no, you need to stay because we don't like confrontation. We're not going to say anything because, previous family dynamics, there would be a blow up or whatever that is, the trauma that kind of replays out. And you stay quiet, or you stay small, or you ignore the red flags and you do all the things.
Yeah.
And you continue to do that enough. And then spirit just comes in and is like, well, I'm going to fuck this shit right up.
Yeah, basically. And that's like when our life starts getting worse, and then we wonder why it's getting worse. And they're like, so he yelled at you, it wasn't enough. He cheated on you, it wasn't enough. Unfortunately for many, it then goes to physical abuse. And then they wonder why it's happening. And then when they look back after and they get out of it, it's like, oh my God, I was unhappy for maybe 20 years, 30 years. It could be a year. It's really hard, because then we start to go into that self-worth piece all over again, but it's super necessary because we have to look at ourselves and say, what was I willing to accept? And that can bring
Yeah.
about its own anxiety and depression. But once we get out of that scenario, we are that pivotal shift generationally for sure. And for our next generation to not allow that sort of behavior and abuse based on the value that we carry. And, looking and having that, let's say, self-pity, which is also necessary, or like being ashamed, right, of what we allowed, that really helps us heal as well. Even though in the moment it doesn't feel like we have to know that it wasn't okay. We have to know that we put ourselves somewhere that wasn't for our highest good to ensure that we don't do it again, right? Looking for similar patterns and similar red flags. And I feel like eventually once you start speaking your truth enough, or you start like setting enough boundaries, you just kind of stop caring about the response, because like you have so much confidence in what you're saying, right? Or you're able to position it in a way where it's not like you're the problem. It's like, I can't do this because of how it makes me feel. Never mind how it makes you feel. And I feel like people really respect that a lot more, because like, okay, yeah, sure, it makes sense. And then it gives them the green light to set a similar boundary with somebody else, or in another scenario, or maybe with you. Right back at you, right? Like, I also don't like that. It's like, okay, got to swallow that one.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I mean, I think that piece about, speaking up, right? Like what you're doing, with the type of activism that you're doing, even just with myself, creating a podcast, something like that. I know that I have a lot of trauma around not being able to use my voice. And so just doing something like this in itself, it's pushing boundaries. It's, it's doing something that, might feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but it really is part of your path. And there's a lot of healing in that too.
Yeah. A lot of healing for our throat chakra. And we can see point blank period, the manifestation of a throat chakra blockage. I can say it on this podcast, I think, with John Horgan, right? Like, you see the direct manifestation of being untruthful leading to chronic illness. And it's not that I ever would wish that on him. I wish him a healthy journey and recovery. But you can tell when people are living out of alignment. And we can manifest a lot of physical illness, if not almost all physical illness, based on living out of alignment, right? Like there is a energetic link to a lot, if not like to at least heal ourselves or mitigate for this. And I think, like, again, like choosing balance, choosing harmony and sovereignty in our own individual experience is a lot easier said than done. And like, yeah, like to anyone that's on that journey of starting, it's, yeah, like I was definitely in that position of very anxious, put myself in many scenarios, even during my awakening, where I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go here. Or, oh yeah, I'll go do that. Or I'll drive from downtown for half an hour and come back just to show face at this event. And now, like, I really think about it. I'm like, let me check in with myself. I'm like, how do I really feel? And like, naturally you have obligations. You have places you're going to go because it's a once in a lifetime thing, like a wedding or a certain milestone. And that's just human, right? That's just something that we choose to do. But I think the more that we practice actually being in spaces where we feel heard and warm and welcome and like ourselves, creating that kind of environment for ourselves, it ends up seeping into every aspect of our life, into our relationships, into our family, into our work, into our self-love, into our children. Like, this is work that we are doing for everybody that actually gets to be impacted positively by our light. It's not just, oh yeah, let me do it for me and I'm selfish. Like, we do it for us, yeah, but when we think about how it actually helps everybody around us, I feel like it ends up releasing the resistance to actually making those changes, because a lot of the time you give people permission to be vocal as well. And I think being at the forefront of that and like creating those conversations or being the first person to do that, that's of course really scary. but it ends up being empowering when you see other people doing that too. Like I've seen it with my mom, right? And like that was it was just really, I don't know, fascinating for me to see the direct healing that was occurring. I was like, whoa, like this is wild. I don't want to say at an acceleration, but in ways that she has never maybe stood up for herself before or valued herself. And then seeing that, she has chosen to be in her divine energy a lot of the time. Like for me, it's just seeing that, yep, definitely works.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I've had shifts in my health in terms of thyroid and stuff since, practicing more, I work with people who are intuitive, and so I get my messages from my spirit guides in that way. And a lot of the work recently that I've been doing in that sense has been around the throat chakra. And so when I decided to do the podcast, my spirit guides were just like standing ovation.
I love
they
it.
were so excited. Yeah, they're just like, oh my God, so much healing's gonna happen. It's so great. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad.
Yeah. They're like, all right, you got this. Yeah. And I think making those decisions for ourselves, it's like, you know what? I wouldn't have done this maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but we can see our growth by the different decisions that we're making.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you started it too.
Yeah. Well, okay. I need to shift gears a little bit because you mentioned human design earlier.
Yeah.
And I know you work with clients doing human design stuff. Do you want to just explain a little bit about what it is for people who don't know, and how having an understanding of your own profile can support people?
For sure. Yeah. So I do human design readings, and I have them labeled on, let's say, my website as life purpose readings, because I like to show people their purpose through their design. And so it's essentially like a soul blueprint, and it creates like a chart based on some magic algorithm out there, like what your energy was like at the time that you were born, or the specific transits that were going on. So where you defined, where you activated. And what I look at as activation is what's colored in, and what I look at as conditioning or susceptibility is what is not colored in.
And this is based on a chart. So it's kind of like...
it's based on a chart. Human anatomy.
Is it related to astrology?
Kind of, yeah. Like it's related to the planetary alignments and stuff. It's not a birth chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it looks like your body. Like it looks like biology, kind of. And so your human design shows you what you're activated in and what you're like not activated in. So it's like, where should you really focus your energy? There are 5 types of people in human design and 12 profiles. Those 2 things in combination teach you like a lot about your personality traits, or the way in which you work, the way in which you collaborate with those around you, whether you're somebody that's more of a leader, whether you're somebody that more learns through others, and like, how do you know when you're in alignment or not? And so I'll read those sort of things to people intuitively, as well as what's physically on the chart. I think I have the benefit of being psychic, or having those gifts unlocked, where I can read things differently or relate them to life experiences, because I start to get downloads as I'm reading somebody's chart. But yeah, so you're able to go through that and see where your purpose is. And what I say is, purpose is a way we act. It's not a destination. So we have to remember that there will be things along the way on our purpose that are meant to stay, or maybe they're temporarily. And, we're just there to allow those things into our life, to either have a soul fulfillment for a very long time, or forever, or temporarily, or a lesson. And so a purpose is not a job. A purpose is not a relationship. Those can be parts of living in your purpose, which is meant to bring you opportunity, which is meant to align you with your truth. And that's, a huge part of awakening is choosing that. It's also very difficult to choose that, but it's changed a lot for me, because, I'm a generator in human design. So for a generator, one of the main things is to ensure you're saying yes to only things that you really want to do. The more you say yes to things that are no's, the higher chance you have of burning out, right? The more out of alignment you are, the faster you burn out. And so a lot of the time it ends up giving clients reassurance and validation. It gives them permission to be the person they already know that they are, right? Some people, they'd probably book 5 human design sessions just to continue to hear it. It's like a one-time session, right? But it's like, oh my God, I always do that. I'm like, yeah, you're built that way. like you're not meant to stop, right? And you're not meant to stop living that way. And so it helps them understand the way in which they're programmed as well. So as we get older, we learn more about what's called our design in human design because it's subconscious. So when we know we're going through our subconscious unprogramming, or we're really seeing where those kind of hiccups are, we become aware of that later on in life, most often. Our personality and our human design is something we're more consciously aware of, things that we're aware that we do, good or bad, let's say. And everybody has, the really great parts of the profile, like the not so hot parts. It's all about what you do with the information, right? And the knowledge of how you work and shifting those things to the positive side of us. And so a lot of the time we want to work in the energy that has our conditioning because we want to be able to prove ourselves to somebody or to ourselves that we can do something. And so, a lot of people have like an open crown chakra. So it's like, yeah, you're more susceptible to people's thoughts about you or their opinions. You may base your life and your decisions and actions on what you think people will think of you, right? And a lot of the time that makes people ungrounded because they'll have like a defined root center, which means like, being grounded is super important for them. It's how they're successful. And so, yeah, I read those charts and then I give clients a brief write-up of, what their main activations are, the main things in their chart and their purpose. If you do like the premium version, you then get a follow-up call and then like an additional, like, okay, what are the next steps to take? Like, what are the tangible things I want to know that you're starting to do when we follow up? Because you're real serious about your purpose. Right. And so it's honestly just amazing to like see how clients differ, which ones are similar, who's on a similar path, what sort of like profiles and types are coming to me. And yeah, like tying that into my knowledge of their astrology or just their energy. And so it's a lot of fun. I mean, I wouldn't have anticipated I'd be doing that, but I've worked with people from all different backgrounds, like I was saying at the beginning. So it's, giving them that holistic understanding of how they're meant to succeed, because the system is not based on the profile type of every person. It's based on pretty rigid structure. So like generators and manifesting generators tend to have an easy time being in the system because it's more of like an alpha sort of energy. That's how I kind of explain it. And so a lot of people are not built that way. A lot of people are not built to be the hustler, quote unquote, to be so action oriented. They're meant to be more calm and reserved and to wait for opportunity. And so a lot of like projectors, for example, that I get are like, oh my God, no wonder that feels like shit. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, you need to stop being hyperactive and sit down. You have superpowers of bringing everything to you. You don't need to walk towards it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think human design is really cool. I had my chart read by a friend, oh gosh, maybe a year or two ago. And yeah, you're right. Like there is this like permission aspect to it where you're just like, yeah, oh my God, this thing that I thought was like so broken about me is actually really normal. Like, I'm a manifesting generator. And so I always have a bunch of things going on at once. But sometimes I get frustrated with myself that I don't finish things, right? And like I've had so many hobbies. Like I get super obsessed with stuff. Like for, a while I was obsessed with scuba diving. Like I was scuba diving all the time. I was like literally, I got my cold water diving certificate off of like Vancouver Island. I had like a wetsuit.
Oh my God.
I was like, I'm going to be like a spaceman, like diving person. I don't even know. And then I'm obsessed with that for a bit. And then I'm totally done with it. And like, we'll probably never do it again. Then I'll like pick up like pottery and I'm like, this is everything. I'm completely obsessed with this. And 6 months later, I'm like, I never want to have anything to do with this again.
Yeah.
What the hell? And I was just like,
that's so funny.
And
your energy shifted.
Yeah, well, that too, right? And I just,
Yeah,
and also I think seasons and things as well. Like there's certain times of
for
the year that
sure.
I'm like more creative and want to do certain things. But yeah, I get really passionate about something but then I find something else that I'm passionate about, right? Like it's like I have all of these things I'm always
That's your
wanting to do.
compass. You're like, you don't need to finish what you started. It was enough to give you that burst of energy to find a passion or something you're good at, or to give you the next inspiration, right? We put so much effort into telling ourselves that we're a failure if we don't get A to Z. It's not true. It's what is that goal teaching you? That's enough a lot of the time,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, and all like my half unfinished books. I mean, like I always end up reading them. And this is funny. It never used to be like that. Like I actually, it's strange. When I was a kid, I remember having like this thing where I had to finish a book. Like if I started a book, I had to finish it, even if I hated it, because somebody took the time to write that book. So I had to finish it. It was like a respect thing. And so I don't know. I wasn't living in like my true manifesting generator like theme at that point, but now
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like I
yeah,
got
yeah.
books all over the place. Everything's
Yeah.
half read. I pick up one thing that I'm like, oh, now I need to order this book. And oh, like it's insane. But I
It's
do end up
it's true.
finishing all the stuff of it eventually. But it's like grabbing little pieces here and there. And yeah, I just like a lot of experiences.
Yeah. And that's completely normal,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember whether you have experimentation in your profile, but like, so for some of us, it's just like, yeah, I want to dabble in this and do this and do this. And like, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm like
And
a
so,
1-3. I don't know. I like these
okay,
charts. I
okay.
looked at these things and I'm like, I have no idea what
Yeah,
this
you're an
means. So,
investigator experimenter. So that makes complete
yes.
sense. You're an
Okay.
investigator experimenter. And so you find things to do and you experiment and you see what you really like. You're meant to learn
Hmm.
that through your experiences. An interesting note for any parent that may be listening, conscious parenting tip is, if you have this sort of energy in your child, it could be beneficial to, one, get their chart read or look at their
Hmm.
chart to see. I have a free human design guide on my website where it just breaks down some simple things, but it's just like, them not committing to something is not necessarily them being uncommitted.
Hmm.
Like, they may just need to see what their groove is, what they're really into. So, when you force a kid to sit down and continue to go to do something they absolutely hate it, they're not living in alignment.
Yeah.
So there has to be, some sort of, or at least I think in conscious parenting, I'm not a 3D parent yet, but like what I'm going to try to practice at least is like, of course, consistency, but ensuring that they are not burning out doing something, or that they're not, that, they're happy doing what they're doing. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
glad my parents never kicked me out of dance or anything. I don't think I ever really complained about going. And it's something I did for a very long time, about 18 years of my life. But like, overall, I think, understanding that these kids also know intuitively what they like and what they don't like because they're born awake. It's our expectation and own conditioning and trauma that takes away their own healing ability and
Hmm.
psychic gifts.
Yeah.
So the more we tell them no, the more we're actually conditioning them.
Hmm.
And they have to be able to experience things, especially in this day and age, because they are born so conscious. That's why the kids are so smart. It's just natural evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to know your perspective on, I used to read a lot of Dolores Cannon, and she talked about, how children are coming into the world more awake and like the indigo kids and all of these things. Is
Yes,
that
yes,
something that you're
yes.
seeing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Very
100%. Like, even in my
interesting.
nieces and nephews, like a lot,
Oh,
a
wild.
lot, a lot. And a lot of
Mm.
them coming in, I'm finding, are reincarnations of a couple of generations
Okay.
ago. They'll carry some of that energy, right? Grandparent energy, sibling energy, and come back as a soul contract, basically.
Yeah.
And they'll hold you accountable for that contract for sure. Right now, like, like, we're gonna change things. And I'm running a program right now, helping women heal infertility through shifting their energy. And a
I
big
saw
thing,
that.
yeah, I call it the first trimester program. So healing,
Mhm.
your first trimester, first 3 months being healing your energy in your womb space. because a lot of our trauma is harbored in our sacral chakra, which is in our womb, our inner child and whatnot. So a lot of what I'm seeing at this point in time is, well, it's just overall, it's not even in this point in time or with these clients. It's what I teach a lot of my moms to be, or clients that generally want kids. It's like, they know what they want you to learn. They know what they want. They know the environment they want to be in. They know like the parent, they know the lessons, they know what they've signed up for.
And this is the child's like soul, right?
Yeah, the child's soul. Like they know because they've chosen their parents. They also know what they expect them to have done before they arrive. Like they're not signing up to be in the middle of breaking a pattern. Like they want you to break the pattern and then they'll come because that's the life they chose.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty like interesting to actually see with physical clients now, like what the holdup is.
Yeah. Oh, that's
different for everybody.
I've been hearing more about like the spirit baby thing. I haven't like dove into it yet, but it'd be interesting to learn more about that. Maybe have somebody on the podcast, or maybe you can come back and we can chat more about that.
I'd love to come back. But yeah, like the spirit baby thing, it's just wild. Like I know all my kids, and so just like I know their personalities, and like there's all really wild. All of them. Yeah, I know all of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's super crazy. But you know, it's also a blessing because they're just like, all right.
Yeah.
You help me make this decision then. Like a lot of our growth is also pushed through them, right? Like because of what they want, right? Which is also a manifestation of your future. So it's like collaborative energy.
Okay. That's very paradigm shifting.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I know.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, we're at time now, but so we're going to end there. And I'm sure people are going to have a ton of questions and want to get connected with you. How do you work with people? How can people find you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is at the.rkh. So yeah, letter the.rkh. My website is therkh.com, which is also, it's linked in my link tree on my Instagram bio. And so you just go on the book online link there. It'll show my calendar, my availability, the 3 calls that I have right now, which are 2 life purpose ones, which are the human design, and then the one-on-one coaching. For the infertility program, that will also be in my link tree. It's through my Kajabi. And I don't know if you have any male listeners, but this week or early next week, I'll be launching what I'm calling men's success codes, which is helping men unprogram so they can better align with themselves, heal their mother-father wounds, as well as align in conscious partnership and parenting. And so all that stuff is linked in my bio on my Instagram. They can be booked directly through there with all the instructions. And, you know, I read my DMs. I just hired a new assistant. So if someone's listening to this in about 2 weeks' time, she'll be in my DMs more so than me. But I think I'm pretty accessible. So if you're on my Instagram, you'll be able to get in touch with me.
You totally have been. I remember like messaging you like mid-pandemic being like, what the fuck is going on? You're like, LOL, I know, girl. Everything's going to be fine.
I love that.
So thank you for that. Very
no problem at all.
Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of this incredible wisdom.
Yeah.
And
no worries.
Would love to have you back another time.
I'd love to be back.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Thanks so much for sharing your time and energy with us today. We'd love to hear your feedback on how our podcast has impacted your life, and are also open to suggestions for new and interesting topics. Please leave your comments with a quick review to help us grow this magical community of wellness warriors and light workers. Every month, we select one lucky reviewer to win our big magic box containing all 3 of our beautiful magic lattes. To connect with us further, check us out on Instagram at wild_remedies. Thank you again, and see you at the next episode.